Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Our guest today is Thomas Perilla, Dan Stuart, the president of Juggernaut Exploration, and Roger Rosmus, CEO of Goliath Resources. Thank you guys for joining Wall Street Silver.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Well, it's a pleasure having you guys all on. I wanted to bring you guys all on to talk about the gold, silver markets, everything that's happening and developing. That's so exciting because the prices are just keep going up for gold as well. Tom, I'll start with you. Where do you think silver and gold is going as of 2024? Where do you see it going until the end of 2024?
I think we're heading into what'll be a seasonally fantastic period for gold and silver. We're in an early cycle, and if I look at the equities, S&P 500, I'd consider that a late cycle. So it can still go higher, the S&P, but I mean, it still needs to attract fresh money, and that becomes harder and harder. Whereas gold and silver being early in the cycle, you're going to see a lot of fresh money flowing into it. The Federal Reserve, they keep pushing these rate cuts off farther and farther. But I think they're trapped. The commercial real estate market is just imploding. I
Right.
mean, carnage all over the country is unbelievable. I looked at an outdoor shopping mall in Santa Monica, just went into default. In March, it had a 61% occupancy. So anytime you get occupancy in any of these places below 65%, they start to just bleed. And sure enough, a month later, they went into default. And I'm seeing that all over the country. And the concern I have about the entire market, I guess, would be complacency. The gym I go to, there's a lot of kids there between 18 and maybe 27, 28. They always talk about investments. Not one of those kids has lived through a bear market yet.
Right.
And that's staggering. They don't understand what that means. What happens when, your, account goes down 20, 30%? That's a normal part of a bear market. And then, things adjust. How are those, that group of investors, how are they going to act when they have a 25% correction in the market? My guess is it's going to be like one of those, comic strips where you see a sheep run over the cliff and everybody falls. I think you're going to have a lot of panic between that group. And I think you're going to have some panic selling. And then I think people are going to wake up. It's funny. They always ask me investment questions when I'm there. They refer to gold and silver as a relic. Because they're buying Bitcoin, Ethereum, that's their thing. But you look at what gold and silver did this year. Gold has gone up about, went from 1,800 to 2,400, so it went up 33%. And I think really the year's just beginning. We're going to have quite possibly the best summer that we've had in precious metals, maybe in my lifetime. Everything's lined up perfectly. You've got, unfortunately, geopolitical problems all over the world.
Right.
You've got the Fed to the point where if they don't start to cut rates soon, they've got banks hanging on by a thread because they're losing a lot of money on their U.S. Treasury holdings, and now they're losing money on the commercial real estate defaults. So the banks can't keep this up. So the Fed's going to have to come in and pump liquidity in. And when they do, I see no reason why gold and silver aren't going back to new highs. I know we
Absolutely.
kind of thought we'd be at about 2,400. I think if you moved up another, 10 to 15% for here, that wouldn't shock me at all. And, put you at maybe more like 27, 2,800. Silver, the real question mark there is you get through, say, 33, it may just open up, and in a blink of an eye, you might be at 50. And I go back to what you did with your followers over the last couple of years. They've accumulated a lot of silver. The people that have followed you have really followed you to what's going to be an incredible payout at the end of it. It just wasn't overnight. And I think that's maybe the key.
Absolutely.
Everybody out there should just keep accumulating monthly, add your positions. Don't worry about the day-to-day fluctuations too much. Just keep stacking it up. Everything's
Absolutely.
coming together. We're heading for what I see as almost the perfect storm in precious metals.
And Roger, where do you think you are the CEO of Goliath Resources? You are in the silver and gold market every single day and watching it. Where do you think gold is going?
Well, I would concur with Tom for sure. I mean, ultimately, for obviously a junior explorer at our current stage, really it shouldn't affect us in that regard. But obviously, it just makes when you see gold going higher, you see people more, I guess, piling into the sector that looking for gold, decent gold names with silver names.
Right.
Mind you, because our projects may not be in production for quite some time. However, certainly the trajectory of gold and silver where it's going, I think bodes well, certainly for the long term.
Do you think the main reason why, gold is having that run is more, is it geopolitical or no? Is it just the fundamentals of gold? Is it interest rates? What do you think, Roger?
Well, I think it's a combination of all the above. Ultimately, you've got various countries by accumulating gold on a very almost like an appetite that hasn't been satiated yet, and that is certainly driving things for sure. But and as things move along here, we think the USD obviously that where it's going, and where we're going to see a correction at some point here. Well, we have been seeing it, and
Yeah.
we'll just continue to drive the accumulation of gold by these various countries and so on.
Absolutely, well said. And Dan, you are the president of Juggernaut Exploration. How long have you been in the silver and gold market, and what do you see going on in gold and silver from now to the end of 2024?
Yeah, thanks, Ivan. Well, I've been in the business for 29 years. Actively managing portfolios or investing in the precious metals space for over 2 decades. Really where I see the Fed as being cornered. So, if they're going to cut rates, we're going to see the US dollar go lower, and we're going to see gold go higher.
Right.
If inflation stays sticky, well, gold is a true store of wealth. And I think that forces gold to go higher, as we've been seeing here with sticky inflation numbers. So if you can name one central bank that's buying Bitcoin other than Ecuador, I'd like to know. So I believe the central banks also look at this as a true store of wealth. And, gold will continue to trend higher here.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely, I agree with you there. Do you understand that like I know a lot of people in the silver and Wall Street Silver, we've been following for like 3-4 years that if the second interest rates go lower, the second the Fed makes the pivot, Dan, that silver and gold will go higher. Do you believe that's the case or no? Do you think it'll take a hit at first and then go higher? What are your opinions? The second they do lower interest rates, what happens to silver and gold?
I think we've already seen that move kind of telegraph ahead of time. So, the stock market is really a forecasting machine,
Right.
like a weather machine. So it's looking 6 months out. We've seen that data come in, and we've seen gold kind of run to that 2,400 level. Some numbers came in that made it look like inflation was going to be a little bit more sticky, and rates were going to get cut. So gold pared back to about 2,300. Those numbers are now reversing themselves a little bit. And I think on this cut, depending if it's a 25 beep cut, I think gold kind of stays where it is or slowly trickles up,
Right.
kind of, a $10, $25 move. But I think if we see a half a beep, 3/4 of a beep, or a full beep, I think we're looking at a $50 to $100 move within a couple of days of that decision being made.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Wall Street Silver we're having the same like that's what the general public is kind of believing too. It'll make that massive move. And Roger, how long you been in the silver and gold industry? I didn't ask you there.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, no, I've been in the space, over 30 plus years. Background by investment banker, funding very many companies in the space out of Toronto with an exempt market dealer's license. And similarly, just by default, a lot of these companies I was funding have been in the precious metal space. So it's been quite some time. And ultimately, with Goliath, we saw a package of assets back in 2016, created Goliath in 2017, took it public, and essentially here we are today with a brand new discovery, never been drilled before, and working its way to essentially, I believe, a tier 1 asset at the end of the day once we complete all our drilling over the next few years here.
Well, very interesting. Tom, I wanted to get back to you. You said earlier about the commercial real estate and how troubling it is. We've been seeing in the news recently, like even like big people have been talking about how crazy the commercial real estate crisis is going to be. And banks, they just they have so many unrealized losses on their books. We've been talking about this for a while now. How bad do you think that will be in the contingent from it? Do you think it'll spread into different sectors, or just they'll quickly come, the Fed will quickly come in and try to save the day, or what do you think will happen there?
It'll most definitely spread into other sectors, and that's the part that will finally push the Fed that they'll have to go ahead and make a move. The problem they've got is, not only are the banks sitting on a lot of these loans, but I saw a number the other day, 3 US banks, JP Morgan, Citi, and Bank of America combined are sitting on 7.4 trillion in off-balance sheet assets right now.
Wow.
Which that included in that are the standby letters of credit, which there's a red flag. Interest rate swaps and derivatives, all inside of that. They haven't learned a thing since 2008. In 2008, I was at National City Bank. People have no idea how close we were to ATMs failing back then. I mean, you were maybe 2 or 3 days away from it. General Electric, who was a huge company back then, they were really worried they were not going to be able to make payroll because the credit markets completely froze. And what I'm seeing now in commercial real estate is the same thing. The credit markets are freezing up, and the banks are now tightening their lending standards a lot, which isn't that crazy? The cat's
Yeah.
already out of the bag. If they were worried about standards, they should have been worried about it 2 years ago. But I see that as a potential time bomb where the Fed will have no choice because they can't let the system just completely blow up. So they're going to have to step in, and when they do, they're going to have to pump liquidity into it. The part that interests me and why I really wanted to have like Juggernaut and Goliath on your show, the explorers interest me a lot because I think you're going to run into a situation when gold and silver really takes off, you're going to have a supply issue pretty fast. I think you're going to run into supply problems. And when that happens, assets in the ground are going to jump in value tremendously. Now, both of these are exploration companies, but they're drilling out their properties. So if you drill out your property, you prove it out, and you say, okay, we know the assets are in there. Somebody big like Newmont or maybe one of the Australians, they're going to step in and they're going to buy that group because they want the assets in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the price of gold and silver, although it really doesn't affect the exploration miners a great deal because they're not in production, it does affect their overall value a great deal because, if assets in the ground jump 50% and these guys prove out their properties, well, those assets in the ground are going to jump too. And I think you're going to see a real premium on guys that have proved out their properties and have assets that somebody bigger wants to step in and scoop. But this commercial real estate problem, it's a systematic problem across the whole country. I was looking at a multifamily home in California. Last year, the property insurance on that property was $19,000. This year, it's $109,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And under the California Fair Plan, it jumps to $174,000. So here's a guy who owned that thing just 2 years ago, paying $19,000 a year in property taxes. Now it's $174,000. And it's even spreading now to what used to be kind of the sacred cow, self-storage. That was just a money-making machine. In March, rentals and self-storage across the country fell by 4.5%. So even that sector is getting hit. So that tells you the whole sector is getting hit top to bottom.
Wow.
And you can't let that whole sector go down. I mean, that's the lifeblood of the country, really. I mean, so the banks are tied to it. It's one of those deals where, if you have a $200,000 mortgage at the bank and you default, they could care less. But if you've got 200 million, you own a piece of that bank now. They're going to do everything they can not to let you default. So I think they're going to work together with the Fed. Plus, you got the election coming up. The Fed's going to do what they can to kind of keep the economy moving, to keep Biden in office, I think. So you've got a lot of things that are going in your favor as far as the rate hikes moving in order to protect the banks and the real estate market.
Absolutely. And I wanted to get back to Dan and Roger. One question before we all head out. I wanted to ask you guys more about the exploration side of, silver and gold. Do you think you'll start seeing big players that need silver on the mass, like whoever's making it, whether they're making it for their chips or cars or electric vehicles, or do you think you'll start seeing like big companies start buying explorers and producers? What do you think they'll go? We'll start off with Roger.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not a surprise that a lot of these bigger players, their current assets, they're depleting them every day.
Right.
That hasn't been any new discoveries made in a very, very long time that would to make a material impact on things. And I think we're already seeing some of the players coming in, acquiring assets at a certain level that obviously a ways away from production. However, all the senior miners, it's a fact, well-known fact by everyone that assets being depleted every day, and they need to replenish those assets. So, I think with where the prices have been going, they're making a ton of money. That at some point, we'll be seeing this capital being deployed, acquiring some of these junior explorers, such as Goliath as well as Juggernaut.
Absolutely. And Dan, what do you think? Same question. Do you think you'll start seeing big players like Tesla, or in the future, maybe bigger companies come in and acquire silver and gold mines?
I do. I think that the hardest thing to do in exploration is to create something out of nothing. So every mine, whether it is from a base metal to a precious metal, at some point started as an outcrop or a piece of land
Right.
yet to be staked, right? So these are depleting assets, as Roger mentioned. New things have to continue to be found, and nobody's been putting money into it. We've heard talk of Samsung coming into the space, specifically silver. And the reason behind that is the new photovoltaic technology that has come out that, traditionally with the computer model, half the price and twice as fast. But what they found with this new silver photovoltaic technology is that you're actually going to need double to triple the amount of silver for more uptake of energy. So we've already seen talk of Samsung entering the space, Tesla entering the space. We've seen those companies actually go out and do joint ventures with explorers in the Americas. So the tide is coming. Escondida was found, call it over 2 decades ago, and it was the world's largest copper discovery at that time. We've needed to find a new Escondida every year for the past 20 years. And guess what? One hasn't been found in 20 years.
Right.
So, and that's the copper, that really fits into the kind of the copper gold space. So the seniors are coming. We've seen a lot of big assets being acquired in northwestern BC where Roger and myself are, both Goliath and Juggernaut. So they're coming. Newmont's now the largest landholder in our region. So the big boys are right beside us.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting, especially at like we're watching it very closely, the markets, and we also watch the mining side as well. So it's very, very exciting. I wanted to thank you guys all for coming down to Wall Street Silver. It's such a huge pleasure having you guys come down and giving your insights, because you guys are explorers and you guys know that industry. So thank you so much, Tom, Dan, and Roger. Such a huge pleasure, and hopefully as the market develops, I'd love to have you guys back on, if whether together or one by one, that would be no problem. But thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ivan.
Thanks, Ivan.